I never thought I'd meet a billionaire, let alone spend the night with one. But what shocked me more, I woke up, realized I didn't feel a thing, and ghosted him. Now he's blowing up my phone, showing up everywhere. Here's why I can't go back. Before I dive into this crazy story, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Trust me, you won't believe what happened next. So, here's the thing. I'm just a regular black woman, living my life, minding my business, trying to make it through the week. I've always been the kind of person who keeps her head down, does her thing, and doesn't get caught up in all the drama. I've got bills to pay, dreams I'm chasing, and a small circle of people I trust. Honestly, I never imagined I'd ever find myself in the middle of a story like this. It all started at this fancy gala I wasn't even supposed to be at. My friend had a last-minute +1 ticket, and she begged me to come. At first, I didn't want to go. I thought, that's not my scene. I don't have the clothes, the money, or the patience for rich people pretending to be down to earth. But she was persistent, and I figured, what's the worst that could happen? So I threw on my best dress, the one I saved for weddings and special nights out, and we went. The room was dripping with elegance. Crystal chandeliers, tables covered in white linen, people in gowns and tuxedos sipping champagne like it was just sparkling water. I felt a little out of place, but I told myself to smile and act confident, and that's when I noticed him, standing there, laughing with a group of people. His presence just filled the room. He wasn't traditionally handsome, but there was something about the way he carried himself, smooth, confident, magnetic. He noticed me too. Our eyes met for just a second, and he gave me this smile, the kind that makes your stomach do a little flip. Later that night, he found a way to introduce himself. I could tell right away he was someone important. He spoke with this casual authority, like he was used to people listening to him. He asked about me, where I was from, what I did. It wasn't until halfway through the conversation that I realized he was that billionaire everyone seemed to know. My friend even whispered to me, that's him, the one who owns half the city. Suddenly, I was standing there, talking to someone I never thought I'd meet. But the thing is, he made it feel so easy. The conversation flowed naturally, and before I knew it, we were laughing, sharing stories, and enjoying each other's company. For a brief moment, I forgot who he was, forgot about the money, the power, the world he belonged to. It felt exciting, like I was stepping into a story that wasn't mine. But deep down, I couldn't shake this feeling, like I was playing a part in someone else's movie. After the gala, everything happened so fast, like I'd been swept up in a current I couldn't quite control. We left together, his driver waiting outside in a sleek black car, the kind that looks like it's worth more than my apartment. I hesitated for just a moment, thinking maybe I should just call it a night, but he looked at me with that same smile, charming, confident, almost daring me to say no. And just like that, I found myself sliding into the leather seat beside him. The ride was quiet, comfortable, with just enough tension to make it feel like something was about to happen. He asked if I was okay, if I was comfortable, and I nodded, though inside my heart was racing. When we pulled up to this massive penthouse, I couldn't help but feel a little out of place again. The doorman greeted him like he was royalty, and we rode a private elevator straight to the top. The doors opened to this breathtaking view, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the lights below twinkling like stars. He poured us each a glass of wine, the expensive kind, though I barely noticed the taste. We sat on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. He told me stories about his travels, his businesses, things that seemed so far from my world. I nodded along, smiled, but there was this small voice in the back of my mind asking, "What are you doing here?" Still, his charm was undeniable. He made me laugh, made me feel special, like I was the only woman in the room, though we both knew there were thousands before me and would probably be thousands after. When he leaned in, it felt natural. The kiss wasn't rushed, not forceful, just Easy. One thing led to another, and we ended up in his bedroom, this luxurious space with silk sheets and a view of the city that stretched for miles. For a moment, I let myself get lost in it. The feeling of being desired, of being in a place so far from my everyday life, was intoxicating. But as the night wore on, something shifted. His stories, once fascinating, started to feel rehearsed. His touch, once thrilling, started to feel expected. Somewhere deep down, I realized this wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined. It was a night, just a night, and by morning, I'd know what I needed to do. When I woke up the next morning, the sunlight was pouring into the room through those huge windows, casting golden stripes across the sheets. For a split second, it almost felt like I was waking up in a dream. Everything around me was so perfect, so polished. But then reality hit me. I looked over at him, still asleep, and it was like this wave of clarity just washed over me. All the charm, the smooth words, the expensive wine, it all felt like a performance, one I didn't want to be part of anymore. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, trying to shake off the feeling. The night before had felt so intoxicating, but in the light of day, it was just empty. His stories, his wealth, even the way he kissed me, it all started to feel calculated, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. And I realized something deep inside me. I wasn't special to him. I was just another woman in a long line of women, another fleeting moment in his carefully curated life. I could have stayed. I could have waited for him to wake up, for him to offer breakfast on the balcony, maybe even a little sweet talk to make me feel wanted again. But I knew that if I stayed, I'd be playing a role in his story, not living my own. So I got up quietly, gathered my things, and slipped out without a sound. I didn't leave a note. I didn't text him. I just disappeared, like a ghost. Walking through the lobby in last night's dress, I felt a strange mix of guilt and relief. Guilt because I knew he'd wake up and wonder where I'd gone. Relief because I was finally choosing myself over whatever fantasy he was offering. I didn't need his money, his lifestyle, or his attention to feel valuable. I needed to feel authentic, to be true to myself, and that meant walking away from something that didn't sit right with me. As I stepped out into the crisp morning air, I took a deep breath and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. It was scary, but it was real, and even though I didn't know what would come next, I knew I had made the right choice. I thought that would be it. I thought I could just slip away quietly, let that night fade into the background, and go back to my regular life. But I was wrong. So wrong. It wasn't even a day before the texts started rolling in. At first, they were polite, almost casual. "Hey, just wondering where you went," or "Did something happen?" But when I didn't reply, the messages got longer, more desperate. I thought we had a connection. "Can we talk?" I ignored them, thinking he'd eventually get the message. But instead, his messages became relentless. Then came the gifts. At first, a bouquet of flowers showed up at my door. Beautiful, but it felt invasive. I hadn't given him my address. How did he even find out where I lived? I was creeped out but tried to brush it off. Maybe he'd move on. But then a box arrived, a designer handbag I knew cost more than my rent, and then another box, this time with shoes. I left them unopened, sitting in the hallway like little reminders of a night I wanted to forget. He wasn't giving up. One morning, I saw him outside my work building, leaning against his car like it was just another casual day. I froze. My heart started racing. How did he know where I worked? He smiled, waved, and called out to me like we were old friends. I wanted to scream, but instead, I forced a tight smile and kept walking. My coworkers noticed, whispering about the guy waiting outside. I felt embarrassed, exposed. I realized his charm wasn't just charm, it was control. His obsession wasn't love, it was ego. He wasn't used to being ignored, to someone like me walking away. I think, in his mind, I was supposed to be grateful, to fall at his feet because he was rich and powerful. But his money didn't mean anything to me. His persistence, his so-called affection, it all felt hollow. I wasn't flattered, I was scared. I blocked his number, changed my social media settings, tried to erase every trace of him from my life. But even as I tried to shut him out, a part of me wondered, why was he so determined? Was it about me, or was it about the fact that I said no? For days, maybe even weeks after that, I kept thinking about what had happened. I was confused, angry, and honestly, a little scared. Here was this man, this billionaire, who had everything anyone could ever want. Money, power, connections, a lifestyle most people could only dream of. But he was chasing after me like I was the missing piece in his puzzle. At first, I thought maybe it was just his pride. Maybe he couldn't stand the idea of someone rejecting him. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was deeper than that. I couldn't ignore the way he made me feel. And no, I don't mean the fancy gifts or the attention. I mean the way he made me question myself. The way he made me feel small, like I should be grateful for his interest. Like I should be impressed by his wealth, his power, his status. But here's the thing, I wasn't. I grew up knowing what it means to work hard for what you want. I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be underestimated, to be told I need to prove myself. I know what it feels like to have to carve out my own space in a world that wasn't built for me. So, no, his money didn't impress me. If anything, it made me more cautious. As a Black woman, I'm constantly aware of the dynamics at play, the power imbalance, the assumptions, the expectations. In his world, women like me are either invisible or seen as a prize to be shown off. I couldn't let myself become that. I couldn't let myself be reduced to someone's fantasy, to someone's trophy. I needed to stand in my own truth, even if it meant walking away from the glitter and gold, even if it meant feeling a little lonely, a little scared, a little lost. And you know what? That realization gave me strength. It made me see myself in a new light. I wasn't just some girl he met at a party. I was a woman who knew her worth, a woman who refused to settle for less than genuine respect and love. I realized that his obsession wasn't about me at all. It was about control. It was about someone who was used to getting what he wanted, trying to bend me to his will. But I wouldn't let him. I couldn't. I found myself thinking about all the times I'd stayed silent, all the times I'd let myself be talked over, dismissed, or ignored. This was my chance to change that, to set boundaries, to say no more. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I started reconnecting with the parts of myself I'd forgotten, the strong, resilient, grounded woman who didn't need a billionaire to make her feel valuable. I had that power all along, and once I saw that, I knew there was no going back. After all the chaos, the texts, the gifts, the unexpected visits, I finally reached a point where I knew I had to shut it all down for good. It wasn't enough to just ignore him, to hope he'd eventually give up. I had to take control of my own story. I blocked his number, deleted his messages, and cut every thread that tied me to him. It was both terrifying and liberating, like standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing you could fly if you just took that first step. I didn't owe him an explanation. I didn't owe him my attention. But for my own peace of mind, I sat down and wrote a long message I never sent, just for me. I poured out everything I wanted to say, how I wasn't impressed by his money, how his attention made me feel trapped instead of special, how I wanted real love, not a performance. And then I deleted it. That letter wasn't for him. It was for me, to remind myself why I was walking away. As the days turned into weeks, the messages stopped. The gifts stopped. The silence was so loud, it almost felt unnatural, but it was also peaceful. I focused on rebuilding my own life, reconnecting with friends, pouring myself into work, and rediscovering the things that brought me joy. I went back to dancing in my living room on Saturday mornings, back to laughing with my girlfriends over cheap wine, back to being me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt light. There were moments when doubt crept in, when I'd wonder, did I make a mistake? But deep down, I knew I hadn't. I chose myself. I chose my dignity, my peace, my happiness. And that was worth more than any bag, any gift, or any billionaire's attention. I wasn't a prize to be won. I was a woman who knew her worth. And you know what? There's something powerful about taking back your narrative, about not letting someone else define your value, about standing in your truth, even when it's hard. I realized that love, real love, can't be bought. It's not about money or power or grand gestures. It's about connection, respect, and honesty. And if someone can't offer you that, no matter how rich or charming they are, they're not worth your time. So that's my story. The billionaire might still think about me, might still wonder what went wrong. But I don't wonder anymore. I know I made the right choice, and I know I'm better for it. I'm not chasing fantasies. I'm building my own reality, one where I'm the star of my own story. And honestly, that's worth more than all the money in the world. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had to ghost someone, or maybe you wish you had, drop your story in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I've got more wild tales to tell.